Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're back with a pandemic project. This one today is going to be the Ambassadeur 7000 C3. This reel was made in Taiwan, not Sweden, even though it kind of looks like it gives you that badge that says that. This one's in nice condition, turns very freely. It's the 7000 size. It's a saltwater reel, and this one is a reel that's used by Leo. And he does a lot of casting with it, and he's enjoyed the reel, and he asked me if I could tune it up for him. So I'm going to do just that. He also sent me a Penn Squidder, and he also sent me another Ambassador, and a smaller frame, the 6500 C4, and I'm going to make sure that I take care of those as well. But I haven't done one of these in a while, and I thought maybe I would help you out by showing you how this reel is made, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. So while we get started, I wanted to thank our first responders and essential personnel, everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. And to those of you that are on the front lines, your services truly are appreciated, whether it's fire, police, EMT, medical, certainly in the hospital wards, as well as the long-term care facilities, and to those special volunteers and folks making the vaccines a reality in the distribution. So thank you all. I do also start by letting you know I wear a protective glove on my hand to keep the oils and greases off there and the dirt that's inside the reels, and that I use a parts tray. It's the bottom of a milk jug, but I use a parts tray for all the pieces and parts that I take off. So let's get started taking pieces off. This is a nut cap here for the handle, so we're going to go ahead and do that. That's an 11mm nut there. And we're going to take that off in the traditional counterclockwise fashion. You'll notice that there's a C-clip or an E-clip, I always get them confused, that's holding that gear sleeve on. And you won't be able to get that handle off most times without taking that clip off. So I'm going to hold that. I don't want that clip to shoot. Just use my fingernail. It's usually a pretty light tension clip. See if I can't push that out. And I did. I got it started. So now I'm just going to use a kind of a pick to work it the rest of the way. These are easy to lose and hard to replace, so be aware of it. That's the clip. You can see it here on my glove. And that's going to go right into the parts tray so I don't lose that. All right, with that off, then the handle can come out. And then we can take that tension washer off. That's a little washer that sits between the star adjuster and the handle. Let it run in my parts tray. And then we can back off the star adjuster. And then we can work on these 3 screws to get that side plate off. So sometimes you can remove them by hand strength. They are thumb screws. Sometimes you can't, and you need a little assist from the screwdriver. So we'll go ahead and get that done. So the 7000 is the size of about well, like a Penn Jig Master in size. Maybe a little bit less capacity. The frame is about the same size. The capacity on a spool may be closer to a Penn Squidder, and Leo has both, the Penn Squidder and the 7000. And overall, it's a nice uniform reel. Just checking the back here. There's a little bit of grease in here. Let's go clean that up. The spool just got picked right out. These have the Teflon or the plastic gears. I do not lubricate those. There is to me, that's just it's a petroleum product that's self-lubricating, and there's no need to do that. I believe this is a bearing in the back. I just took the cap off, so I'm going to go oil that. I oil my bearings. I don't use grease on them. I find in a saltwater environment, which is what where Leo is fishing, that he winds up with micro sands and the like in there, and that becomes problematic. All right, this spool can go back in. There's nothing we need to do with that spool now. Let's set it aside. This is always interesting. I just noticed I had 3 of them. I figured I better look on my table. There's usually a 4th. Be careful when you're working with these reels. They have these little spool brakes. They ride on these little tines that are coming out of the spool. And more times than not, if you see one's missing, you probably got it missing when you took the spool out. They're eccentric driven, and as the spool speeds, those brakes move out. They ride inside the ring here, and they help to control the castability of that, if castability is a word. Okay, that spool is essentially done. I'm going to take this out for a moment because I did notice he's got some corrosion going on the bottom there, so this is a good time to try and clean that. I'm just going to hit it quickly with some penetrating oil and some steel wool. See if I can't get that a little bit cleaner for him. Well, this looks like it's kind of pitted. So it'll polish up a little bit, but there's some pitting going on there from the salt, and to the extent that we removed some of the greening, but there's no way you're going to remove the pitting that goes on in there. So we could say we did our best. We tried. All right, make sure you still have the four of those little brakes on there. You have a click tongue here. You could put a drop of oil onto that click tongue assembly for the reverse. You can also get a drop of oil onto the bearing from the inside of the spool. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that spool back in. A balancing act, gee. There we go. All right, and then I sit it straight up so I don't lose those little spool brakes there. Let's go over to the front side. There's two screws that are holding this on. Let's go ahead and take those out. So some of these Ambassadors have a lot of bearings and some have less. In this case, there's not a lot of bearings going on in here. I think there's two. And Leo had asked me if he could upgrade these, or if he should upgrade these to ceramic bearings. And this one is spinning very freely, so I don't recommend that he do that there. Even though he uses this reel for casting, that I don't see anything that's going to say it'll make a dramatic difference. Now there's reels out there, and I just did one. I did a Shimano Calcutta, where those ceramic bearings made all the difference in the world. But I don't see it here in terms of a difference maker, so I wouldn't recommend that he go ahead and do that. All right, the case is off. We want to make sure that it's clean in the back, and it's very clean. He's been taking care of his reels. That's a good thing. And we're just going to go do the same thing here. We're going to put a drop of oil in here. Make sure that that gets lubed nicely. We'll let it work its way in as we turn our attention to the main gear. So a service like this, you just want to clean it. You want to make sure that everything is freshly greased and everything. And you can see behind here, we got a couple of things going on, but most of it is just some dried grease. I'm going to use a penetrating oil to loosen that up. I'm going to use a cotton swab to get the old grease off. This is a good place to tell you, take pictures of what it is that you're doing as you disassemble the reel. That way you can come back in later if you get stuck and look at the pictures and say, okay, well, there's where I took this from, or that's how this piece came out, or so on. And it's not uncommon to have folks get lost along the way. We trust our memories way too much, and that includes myself. And if you do get stuck, the picture is a good way to get it done. You can also go to the internet and get the schematics for this. That will be helpful to you as well. If you did get lost, it will provide you with an exploded view of the pieces and parts along the way. Beautifully cleaned. There's a little copper washer. I didn't point that out before. When you take the main stack off, make sure that that copper washer is there. Sometimes it hides on the bottom here, and if it hides on that bottom, just be aware that that washer needs to go there, otherwise you're going to run into some trouble. I'm going to use oil here. I'm not going to use grease. I'm just going to get some of the moving parts oiled. I am going to grease the axle shaft, and I'm going to use a fishing reel grease. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. You don't have to use the manufacturer of the reels grease, but you in my opinion, need to use fishing reel grease for that purpose. Okay, the shaft is done. This is your anti-reverse dog. It's a traditional forked kind of an anti-reverse. It runs off the friction. So as you're reeling forward, it opens up, and as you start to close, it closes down. Just going to leave that right on my desk there. I'm going to take off our assembly here. Notice how it came off. It came off with your tension washers below. Then it came off with your bearing. I'm going to oil that bearing. I think that's a sealed bearing, but we're going to put oil on it anyway. And then you have your drag stack here. So we want to make sure that, again, this stays clean and that if there's any issues there, that they get addressed. I get this one a lot in terms of this particular reel. Folks want to know about this, winged assembly here. That's a tension clip. The drag washer appears to be fine there. Take a look at this side. And this looks like it's Carbon Tex, so it looks like it's already been replaced. Yep, they're Carbon Tex, and we have 2 of those. So you don't need to do anything with Carbon Tex. They don't recommend greasing them or anything. Just there's some oil on here. We're going to leave that oil on there. Going to reseat this. There we go. And then we can put the assembly back on here. There we go. And then you want to mount that dog. The dog is going to ride over this click ratchet, and you need to separate the teeth front and back on this. Just like that. And then you know you have your dog right when you see that there's a flush mount between the saw teeth on this ratchet and the beak, if you will, on that anti-reverse. So you got that right. Okay, so I've been preaching all along about the ability to see what you're doing and using pictures to take a look. And quite honestly, I had to go back to the pictures because I was questioning where this little bell washer went. So it happens to be that this is the first one. Then you have a secondary tension one that comes on top of that. Then we have our first of the thicker washers. Then we have our bearing. And then we have our second thick washer. So the setting up that drag stack, pictures are always a good thing to do. All right. We have our pinion gear we want to put back in. This one has a slot in it that faces the spool. This is driven by the main gear, so we want to make sure that we have the orientation right when we go ahead and do that. So let's get the grease on that. Let's also get the grease onto the shoulder here for the release. We hooked that in underneath. You saw how easily it fell out. Actually, if you come in from the back side, it works easier. And I get this question quite a lot too. It says, should that be free like that? Should it just be flopping around? The answer is yeah. The spool is going to hold it in place. So folks often ask that. All right, should have held my finger on that. I'm just going to hold that. Now we want to go ahead and put the main gear back in. I'm going to slide that over the bridge. Okay, after we've done that, let's just make sure we get grease onto the main gear. And we'll get ourselves set up to reinstall this. I'm just going to lay that down for a moment. We have our spool gear. We want to get grease on that as well. Now this one is easier to install from coming in on the other side. So I'm just going to slide that through. Make sure that it sits in the prong. And I get this question all the time. Should that be floppy like that? And the answer is yes, it should be. That the shaft of the spool is going to hold that in place. Speaking of holding it in place, I'm going to use my fingers to hold it in place as I go to set the main gear assembly. Remember, we have that anti-reverse dog that's going to fit over the stud here. So work that down, kind of line it up, Use my pick to do that, to center that AR dog over that stud. And then that whole piece will just fall in place like that. So that's how you reset the main gear. That's the sequence on the washers and the bearing. That's how you hold the spool gear in. And so the next thing then is simply to put that side plate back on. I'm going to lay this down for a moment because I notice that there's some debris and grease and junk in here, so we might as well take care of that while we're at it, because it's always harder to get at that with that star adjuster. So let's go ahead and grab the steel wool, see if we can't work some of that off there. Okay, I cleaned that up pretty good. Now we can take our piece, look for your slot. So you go to reinstall, that slot's going to line up with the free spool release, just like that. Then make sure that you hear that snap so that your case is free there. We have those two small screws. I look to my, oops, wrong ones. I look to my bench for those. You can tighten that down and we don't have to worry as much about that spool gear, do we? That's one. So if you like this stuff, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel. I do all kinds of things involving reel mechanics, fishing reels in general, a little bit of conversations every now and then about the fishing reel business, and a little bit about various vintage reels. I work on all kinds of reels, whatever shows up in my shop, and that includes bait casters, both low profile and round bait casters like this one. I work on saltwater reels, I work on lever drags, star drag assemblies, spinning reels. Just about any kind of reel that was made, I give it a go. If I can't work on it, if I can't repair it, then I'll say so. But for the most part, I've been pretty lucky in my 20 plus years of doing this that I've been able to figure most of them out there. So I would recommend that if you enjoy that kind of stuff, to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe, please hit the notifications button. That way you'll be able to see all of the episodes that I post, and you'll see which ones that you may or may not enjoy watching. So please subscribe. If you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you got one open on your bench and you're just having some difficulty getting it back together, or maybe you're just wondering how to open up a reel. I've had those questions come in from time to time on certain bait casters. There's always seems to be a little bit of a trick with the bait casters. Leave them in the comments section. I'll try and answer the question if I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'm certainly going to tell you I don't know the answer. But for the most part, I'm pretty good about getting people unstuck on those sort of things. I wish I could get unstuck with this star drag here. I'm just having a little bit of an issue getting it lined up properly. And you need to make sure that these get lined up properly, because if they don't, you're going to side strip these posts, and that's never a good thing. It's just a matter of patience. Eventually you get it. This one's just being a little difficult. There we go. You can hold the shaft as you do this. Keep that from spinning while you put this back on. Alright, then we need to put the handle on. That handle needs to go on before the C-clip goes on, so let's get that on. Oops. Oops is a technical term there. We want to make sure that tension washer is underneath. That's why a parts tray is good. You can go ahead and look and see it. I want to get that little E-clip. They said these are easy to spring free and hard to find, so take care of this one. Most of the time you can get this in with hand strength. Sometimes you need an assist. In this case, the hand strength worked. Next up then is the 11mm nut cap. Just like the other one, make sure that it seats properly. Don't try to wrench it down if you're having difficulty. Hand start it, make sure that and then we want to see if we can't get this to line up now. Not quite. These are always a little bit of an annoyance. You need to get the hole centered to the ring. I think we should have it this time. We're close. No, still a little bit more. Gee. Trying to get that final test in here, and it's just giving me a test here just to get that done. All right, there you go. That's in. Let's get that last set screw. We'll put this back on the reel. And get this to Leo to go fishing again. Nice reel overall again. It's not made in Sweden, but the quality is still there. And it's a Taiwanese manufacturer, and everything looks nice in here. Okay, just going to tighten these down. We'll go over. We'll take a look at that line guide assembly. Make sure that that gets lubricated. And we'll be done with the reel. And I re-lubed these sides, so the adjuster needs to be worked out. There you go. All right, I'm going to swing this over to the side here. We're just going to take a look at the pawl mechanism. You want to get a squirt of oil in there. And then the reel is essentially done. I haven't been having luck getting poles out lately. There we go. Usually you can just kind of wrap them. You want to check the teeth on that pawl, make sure that they're good, and you want to make sure that the shoulder is clear on them of any kind of greases or dirt buildup. This one looks fine. Let's go ahead and reinstall that. Put a drop of oil onto it. Grab our cap, get that back on. Now we can get it back to Leo. So again, thank you to the first responders. Thank you to all of you that are watching. Thank you to the folks that have subscribed. And if you're thinking about subscribing, please, I welcome it. It's good for my channel's vibrancy, and helps keep everything working for my end of the video side. So there you go. That's it. This is the C3 7000 made in Taiwan, and overall a nice reel, and one that I'm sure Leo's going to enjoy taking fishing. He casts from shore, as I mentioned, and that's a nice smooth casting reel. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Please stay tuned, stay safe, stay watching, stay aware of your surroundings, be socially distanced, wear your masks, and get your vaccine when it's available. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing you a great day.